Thank you. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. My name is Mikey Bronowski, and I'm really happy to be able to present today at the GroupBy Europe edition at the free online training event. GroupBy has a code of conduct, so I encourage you to have a read of that. Which is very important for actually every event or place where we deal with other people. A few words about me. I'm database engineer currently in southern England, in Southampton. I have a wonderful wife, Magda, and wonderful son, 2 years old, Arthur. And I'm also a Microsoft certified trainer, trying to teach other people as well. And in the meantime, if I have some time free, I write a blog at bronowski.it/blog. There are some posts about Dba tools, PowerShell, and other things as well. Thank you, our sponsors, for today's event. Without them, it would be really difficult to make it happen. So thank you again. And let's go to the presentation. So today is the SQL Server and PowerShell walk into a bar. Whenever they walk into the bar, there is something about tables and jokes, but I'm really bad with jokes, so I won't tell any jokes today. So I'm just going to go through all the useful PowerShell modules I know of within this hour that will help you to manage SQL Server. So we are going to talk about dbatools, which is the command prompt version of SQL Server Management Studio. We are going to talk about dbachecks, which is based on Pester, a framework for testing PowerShell. And finally, the importExcel, which is the module to manage Excel spreadsheet without the Microsoft Office installed. Although it doesn't say SQL or DBA, it can be used with the other modules as well to make your life easier, and with scripts generate some dashboards in Excel or some worksheets. So let's start with dbatools. dbatools has been created by Chrissy Lemaire originally as a set of tools to migrate something to something. In her case, it was SharePoint, but then it evolved, and now it's a huge module containing over 600 functions to manage SQL Server. And you can almost say that with dbatools, you can do anything that you can do with SQL Server Management Studio, and even more. So it extends the possibilities. The project itself has the website dbatools.io, and all the source code is on GitHub under the SQL Collaborative garage or house in the repository called dbatools. And they also write a book. They started. I'm going to share my screen now just to show you the book. So they started writing the book. It was my dear friend Rob. I don't have the book now. I had this open. Where is it? Oh, here's the book. Can you see the book? Can you see the screen? I think you should see the
yes.
Excellent. So my dear friend Rob Sewell and Chris here started writing a book, and recently my other dear friend Jess Pomfret, who I work with daily, and Claudia Silva joined the team. So they are writing about dbatools, and this is work in progress. So you can buy a book and then read whatever it is there, and then when they finish the chapters, you can read more about DB tools and learn about DB tools. As you can see, there are some good deals as well. So yeah, I encourage you to check if you want to learn about DB tools from the people who work on developing the module. So that was the book, and now switch to the demo. So my setup is on Docker. So I have two containers, and I'm actually loading the module from my local disks. But if you want to install the DB tools, you can either use install module and provide the name of the module, or use some package software package management system like Chocolatey or some other systems, and use command choco install dba tools. It's there as well. So just be aware that if you're installing something from software package management, just make sure you have what's who is maintaining that, because it's not always the same person who created the software, but in this case it should be safe. So first, the basic command would be to connect to the instance. Let me see if I used my default credentials. I'm using the SQL authentication method. So I have some default settings, so I don't have to provide them each time, like SQL credential. But if it will act almost the same way as you are using the domain account, so you don't have to provide your credentials each time. So let's connect to the instance first using connect dba instance. I'm connected now, and it creates the object. So let's see what's in this object. It's going to take a while to get all these details from this object, because it contains loads of information about your SQL instance. It includes details about databases, jobs, users, logins. It's all in one place. And as you can see, it's running and running. So it's not the best method if you want to do something on your SQL, just like load it into one big object and do the operations on properties. And it's taking a bit longer than usual. So we'll see. It should take around 1 minute, maybe 40 seconds, but I think it's taking a bit longer now. And if it's taking too long, I'm going to cancel that, because we don't need to see that. We don't need to wait forever for that. So, oh yeah, finally. So you can see all the details here. We have roles, logins, everything what's on your SQL instance, it's there. But it's not very useful to day-to-day work. So there is a bunch of functions that are touching specific areas of the SQL Server. So I'm going to create a database, actually 2 databases. The first database will be GroupBy, and the other one will be just random name, unrelated to the speaker. And I'm going to create a new database using new-dba database. So all functions in DBA tools have verb, -dba, and none for whatever action they need to take. So it's easy to find them when you have installed DBA tools. It's always the same pattern. And I've just finished creating the database. It took 16 seconds to create 2 databases on 2 instances. So let's see the databases now with the function get dba database. And we can see all 4 databases had been created. It only took 16 seconds to create them. So if you have even more servers and more databases, it's really easy to create multiple objects with DBA tools rather than Management Studio. Even if you are using CMS or registered servers, it's still much easier to do this with DBA tools. And since I created some custom file graph or some file settings, we can also see the files here for the database. So I'm using get Dba Db file, which show me some custom settings I used and all the details about the file for this particular database. So if I use the format table, it will just give me different kind of output, but it will limit the properties in the view. So it's very, very nice. And if you notice, there is a kind of a prefix suffix in the prefix, or prefix db, dba db. So this is kind of a class. I would call it a class of functions, commands for database specific operations, because the file is database, so it's db file. And now we are using the db table. So we are going to create a table inside the database. And I have few parameters, which the column name is called Solomon, because I wanted to have it that name. It's not a typo. So I'm creating the column called Solomon with the new function. So I just provide the SQL instance, database where I want to place it, name of the table, and column map. And that is the column map for my example. It will be just a table with one column, so not very useful. But I just want to show you it's possible to create tables quickly, and we have the column now. We can also create many other examples, and probably the latest set of functions is to create synonyms. So you can see they are evolving, and those two functions have been added this month, and there are several other functions added this month as well. So dbatools is still growing and still evolving, and people are contributing. So let's create a synonym, providing the SQL instance, database, synonym name, and the base database, which is a target database, target schema, and target object. So I'm going to create a synonym called synonym01, and we can see with that function the properties of that synonym, get Dba Db synonym, because it's inside the database. And now using that is very universal command. So if you find something that you cannot do with dbatools because the command is missing, or it's not working as you want, as you would like to, you can use, and you can use T-SQL, you can use Invoke Dba Query, and it will allow you to run queries. So I'm just going to run the simple query from the synonym I just created. And the synonym points to the backup set, which is my backup location in MSDB. And it's empty because I don't have any backups. So when we create a new few backups, it will be there. So we can go back to that after we create a few more backups. The other thing is not only create objects in databases, but we can also create logins and users. Logins are server level. Users would be database level. So let's create a few logins. Let's create a custom login on 2 instances. So first, new DBA login on 2 instances, and provide your password. Mine is blank, which is not very safe, but I don't really show this instance to anyone. So yeah, it can be blank in my case. And we can see the logins with this beautiful view. So we can have custom login and custom login here created with some other details as well. And now for this login, let's create a user in the database. So in my main database, which is GroupBy, I'm going to create a user called custom user for the login, custom login, just to make it more confusing so they don't match the same name. And in a few seconds, less than 3 seconds, we have 2 users created. And just for the sake of the future example, let's create a login for application purpose, let's say, and with the same username as well in the same database. So again, empty password. We don't care about that password. Don't do this in your environment, especially in prod. We can also create a new role, like database role. Like you have application role, or sometimes people have DB executor role. So I'm going to create a new role with new Dba Db Role command. It created the role, and now I can grant the permission using the Invoke Dba Query, because I couldn't find a function that grants the permission to the role. So there is an opportunity to write one, unless it's already written since I last checked. So I'm going to grant the permission. Now we can add the member to the role, to the DB role. So it's add-dba Db Role Member. And we provide the roles here. It can be a list of array of the roles and the user in the database. And I'm asking the command not to prompt me for the confirmation. So if I just run this, it will prompt to confirm if I'm sure if I want to add the user. So let's say no, because it had 2 roles. So ask me twice. But if I use the switch confirm and with the value false, it will just add the member to the role without asking me, which is great. Sometimes if you need to do scripts programmatically. And very useful command after all of this, and if you want to audit your environment, it's get-dba user permission. So we can have information about our user. And I'm using the filter here for the username. It's the custom user. And we can have details about what permissions this user have. So it's a custom user. It has a custom role because we just added it. It has a DBA data reader because we just added here before, and the default connections here as well. And that's very useful, but even more useful is the export DBA user when you want to script out what kind of permissions is there. So we are going to use this command and save it as an object. It will take a while depending on how many permissions is there. And I've defined the name, custom user txt, and I'm just going to use invoke item to open that file. And it will open me the script, the SQL script, to create the role, create the user, add the user to the role on like 2 different roles, and also grant connect. So it will get all the permissions it has, which is very useful if you want to, if someone asks you what are the permissions, or if you want to apply these permissions to different server, or you want to document that. Sometimes I got the question like, what are the permissions for the user? We need to put this into the documentation of this project. So here it is, very easy. And if you don't use you don't have to use this. It will default to SQL extension. And in my case, if I use invoke item, it will open SQL Server Management Studio and open the tsql script in there. So that's why I use txt file. So I don't have to use Management Studio. And another login, but just for the purpose of changing the DB owner. So let's create the login, custom DB owner, again, empty password, hey ho. And with using the command set dba DB owner, we can change the owner of the database to the target login. So I want to use this login for my main database. And it's done, the owner. Let's see the databases now. So we can see we have two databases, main databases. One owner is custom DB owner, and the other one is SA. If I don't provide the target login like this, and I use the what if switch just to tell me what it's going to do, it will default to SA. So if you run this command without telling the PowerShell what target login you want to have, it will be SA. I believe it's the not especially SA, but the login with the ID OX01. But I would need to verify that. But that I'm pretty sure that will be the SA login, but not SA hard-coded. So this is only a short example of how you can create objects, how you can get details and change objects and add to different places. So it's over 600 functions, commands. It's very difficult to go through all of them in short time. So I really encourage you to go to the website, the project website, and read the documentation. It's really, really useful, and the community behind that is very helpful as well. You can go to Slack channel and get all the answers if you want. So now I want to show you a few other types of commands. And the first one would be the community tools. We can install community tools with DBA tools. Like we have many community tools like SP Whois Active, First Responder Kit, or Diagnostic Queries by Glenn Berry, or even monitoring, a free open monitoring by Marcin Gminski and Ola Hallengren script. And with few DBA commands, we can install all of it. So let's start with the DBA Whois Active. I'm going to install it on 2 servers, and done. Within 7 seconds, we have SP Whois Active on 2 servers. And now we can invoke DBA Whois Active with different command. And we can see the familiar view from Management Studio, but we don't have to open Management Studio to see what's going on the server. And because my instance is lazy, well, empty, nothing is going on. So I just use the show system speeds switch just to see anything. We can also install the Brent solution, the solution that Brent Ozar started, and it's open now. The source code is on GitHub as well, so you can contribute if you see if there is any potential improvement. Just go there and see what you can do. And there is no Invoke DBA First Responder Kit, but we can use Invoke Dba Query. And I'm just running the query exec sp as blitz first, just to see the example. So again, very familiar view from Management Studio, and even not going there. So that's very useful. This is a powerful set from Glenn, and you don't have to install anything, because when the way Glenn provided the scripts, they are in the files per each instance, per each version of SQL Server. So you can go there, grab the script, run. But with DBA tools, you can run this command using the use selection helper switch. It will open up the menu of the 84 queries, and then you select whatever you want, like in my case, let's say version info, click OK, and you run the query, and you have details about my instance, that it's running developer edition on Linux because it's container. And I'm way behind with this version, because I think there's CU24 now, but at least on for Windows. So yeah, that's another way to use community tools. I'm not going to install Martin's solution, just want to show you that it's there, it's possible. If you want to read about this more, just go to Martin's website or project's website, sqlwatch.io. It might take even this separate session to show all the possibilities of the tool, but it's possible to install it with dbatools as well. And finally, the holy grail of the DBAs and open source is the maintenance solution by Ola Hallengren. And we can install the whole solution and also add the jobs to the SQL Server with this simple command. So it will install all the sprocs, tables, and the jobs. It will create the jobs, agent jobs. It will take a while, like 13 seconds. So it was very long. And I have this installed on 2 servers now. Let's see, make sure we have the jobs. Yeah, they are there. Excellent. And now with the dbatools support piping output from one command to the other command. So I can get the agent jobs with the get command and pipe them into the start dba agent job command, which is a perfect way because you don't have to type all these parameters here or names here. Just see if you want what you want to run. Okay, I'm happy with that. Start. It will take a few seconds to run all these jobs. So we'll see in a while when that finishes the history of the jobs. So let's wait a while. And once that's done, I'm running the jobs on one instance, so it should take less time than if I was running this on 2 instances. But since I'm running all of them, yeah, it's done. So less than around half a minute to kick off all the jobs. And using the get dba agent job history, I'm going to see the history of the jobs, and they completed, which is perfect. So I can kick off them with PowerShell. And because some of them included the backups, I can see the history of the backups, which is get dba db backup history on that instance. And that's my history. And the time is, I believe it's UTC time. Yes. So because I run all of them, so I have the full backup and tlog backup as well. But yeah, it's there. And the backups are used not only for disaster recovery, but also for the data refreshment, or if you want to refresh your data on non-prod or migrate to different server. So I'm going to do like a little migration demo here with just a different command, which is backup dba database. So the community tools are very helpful. You can use all of them, but you also have the backup command here as well in dbatools. So I'm going to do the full backup of the main database, and it will give me this status bar. Perfect. It's a 5-6 megabytes database, very big data. And if you are curious about your performance of your backup performance, you can run the measure dba backup throughput. So it will give you details about like how fast is it going. In my case, it's really pointless to run this command at this point because yeah, I don't have much data. And to migrate the backups, I'm going to use the docker copy command because I'm using the Docker container, so I have to copy my backup between containers in this case. if you are running on regular SQL on Windows, you could have a shared folder where you back up your database and then you restore from that place on the different instance. So because I cannot copy directly from one container to another, I'm using the local folder for that. So let's copy the backup. And it's done. And now we can restore that database on my second instance. I'm using the with replace switch to replace the existing database. Right now it was there was a database. Yes, it was, but it was empty. But I had to use the with replace. But for this one, I also use the prefix, which creates a different name for the files. So my files you can see here, log file and primary file, have the prefix on the disk, just in case there is a problem with the existing files. And as for migrations or like refreshing the data from prod to non-prod, there is often a problem with carrying the users over. So there is probably the one of the basic commands after you restore the database is to check the orphaned users. So you can go to get Dba Db orphan user and see the report on the target instance, like how many users in the restored database are not linked to the logins on that instance because they were carried over from the previous instance. And as we can see, I have two users. One is the app user and the other is the custom user. So one way to fix this is to use the repair Dba Db orphan user command. And when I run this, I don't have any matching logins, which is unfortunate because I cannot fix it. So one way would be to create a login on the second server. Let's create a login, empty password. When I run the report and fix it, yes. So this user has been fixed because I've created the login. Perfect. And when I run the report again, just this one user. But like what to do with this one? I cannot fix it. I have the login, but because I've created the login before, but it has different name. But there's other problem. I fixed this app user just right now. But if I restore the database again, let's see this one. So I'm restoring the same backup over this database. And when I run the report, I still have problem with the app 01. And I cannot repair that with, oh, well, I can repair that now because I have the login. But when I restore it again, the problem will still be there. So after each restore, I have to repair the users. So different solution would be to just copy the logins or copy the logins from one instance to other, because on the source server, the user is linked to the login on the source server, and that login has a specific SID. And when we create the login on the second instance, it has different SID. So that user in that database goes there, but it cannot be linked together because that has the details about SID from this source server, where this login on the target server has different SID. So they cannot be linked together. But we can, with dbatools, we can copy the login unless it exists. So I told you it exists, but I couldn't fix it. So with the force switch, we can drop the login on the destination and recreate that. So it didn't ask me for password or anything because it just copied the whole thing. And now when I'm going to run the command, I don't have any orphan users. And when I restore the database again, I used to restore databases every week for a specific environment just to refresh that, and they always had the orphan users. Now, when we run the report, the only app user has the problem because the custom user has been fixed by copying the login. So the login SID on source and target are the same now, because that's the same. All the information are the same now, which is one of the solutions you can do. If you don't want to copy the SID, you can use the switch new SID, and it will create a new SID for that login. And you just need to be aware that then the users might be orphaned when you restore the database from the other instance. And it's also very helpful when you create the AG replicas. So you have one login on each replica and the single user in the database. So when you fail over to different replica, they are always linked to the login on each server. So that's very, very useful for migrations. So that's this tiny migration, but there is much more in dbtools to do migrations. There's so many commands of copy -dba or move -dba. So have a look. Let's go to two other places now, two other types. So that's the SQL Server Config, which is a short demo, but it's very important. When you run the get dba sp configure command, you can get all the configurations from sys configurations table or sp configure store proc. And you can also export that to a file if you want, and then save it somewhere or pass it somewhere. And it's in this format of the T-SQL, or like executing this proc with the settings already. So you don't have to parse this output, which is a tabular format, to this. It's already in this format, which is great. So like save you some time to figure out how to parse the output. And setting the commands here is very useful, very easy, like using the set dba sp configure, and for the backup, check some default, let's say set it to 1. We can see the previous value was 0, new value is 1. We can confirm that with the get command. Yes, it's 1. And that's it. And if you want to import the that file you've just exported as a backup, let's say you do some kind of a installation or something else, and you just want to make sure the config stays the same, or you have the rollback option, so you can just import those configs from that file. It will just apply all the commands, and when it's done, of course, some configurations require the SQL restart. And when you select this one, it shows 0, which was the previous version. So we basically restored the backup of the config. Also, the import dba sp configure supports importing config from different instances. So what we have here on one instance, we can transport to the other instance, which is even better, because you don't have to export this to the text file. You can just go straight away. So if you are building the same set of servers, let's say, and you just want to make sure all the config is the same, which is very, very useful. So that's for the config. And the last bit I want to show you in dbtools is testing commands that will lead us to the dbachecks. So we have set of testing commands, like we can test if the job owner is the one we want to be, like if we want the custom DB owner, we be also a job owner. We know that this is not the case because current owner is SA. So it will report all the jobs that have wrong owner. We can also test the build of our instance. If you want to see the latest, we can say like, no, it's not compliant. I want to be this build, the latest one, but it's not. So yeah, it's very, very useful as well to see, to run this across your environment. And when you create the dashboard, you can see aggregated information about your estate. You can also test the DB owner as same way as the job owner. So my target login would be custom DB owner, and one database has this owner already in place. So the owner match, yes, true for this database, false for another, and default is SA. And we can also check max DOB or max memory. So let's see the max memory. And max memory is default. So it suggests to use this value. So I'm going to set this to 410. And well, when I run this, it will just show me that, yeah, it's the same. So there is plenty of commands, really. And if you want to learn more, just go through all of them, the documentation, or the GitHub repo, and play with the DB tools. So I'm going to switch now to the presentation shortly. Is it presentation now? Yeah. Do we have any questions about DB tools now?
We have a ton of questions.
Oh, wow.
So for the audience, if I'm not reading your question, it might be because it's more broader. So I'm skipping those to the end. So we're just focusing on those that have a context to this. So first one, is it possible to run commandlets in a what if mode? So you basically output the T-SQL that would be executed without executing it.
T-SQL.
Yeah, so you're running
for other commands. Yeah, for other commands we can use the what if, but yeah.
So basically the question is because you're running a commandlet, let's say a restore of a backup, which would in the background do a restore database something T-SQL command. Is there a way of having PowerShell? Is there a way of having DBA tools output that command that would be run? Without running it.
With the restore command, I think there was output script only.
Would you like me to answer that, Mikey?
Well, yeah, sure, Rob.
So many commands you can pipe to export-dba script, which will give you the T-SQL for that action that you're performing. For the backup commands, as Mikey just said, there's an output script parameter, and that will not run the code, but will actually provide you with, as Mikey's demonstrating, the T-SQL for you to look at. So it kind of depends which thing you want. If you want the T-SQL for the creation of the thing, the object that you're doing, pipe to export DBA script. If you want to see what a restore or a backup is going to do, then use the dash output script parameter.
Okay. When I install some of these community tools like Glenberry's or Ollers or Brands or whoever's, will that require an internet connection for the install?
For some of them, yes. I'm not sure if Glenberry's, I think they are included in the DBA tools when they build when the new build is created. But for others, they download it from the GitHub.
Okay, got it. Then one question that I saw at least 5 times, will you be sharing your scripts?
Yes, I will on GitHub. Yes, I will.
Okay. If you do, you ran that commandlet that imported the configuration that basically ran a ton of SP reconfigure commands. Will that override any changes I previously made to my system? So let's say I ran sp reconfigure something and set it to 1, and the commandlet that you ran would set it to 0. would it recognize that I've already changed it to 1 from the default, which was 10 or whatever? So would it recognize if I changed something from the default, or would yours always reset those to the default from the script?
Also, so that's a good question. Because I didn't do like a default restore. I just exported it to the file. So whatever is in this file, I guess it will be restored. So it will overwrite. That's my guess. As that's what's in this config file.
Okay, so let's do 2 quick more. Is dbatools using the SQL Server or the SQL PS PowerShell module, or none of those at all?
I think that's none of those. Rob,
so it's all using their own.
So the dbatools module makes use of the SMO object, SQL management objects, to perform its actions. So it's .NET. So it doesn't use SQL PS or the SQL Server. It basically, if you run a profiler, it's just running T-SQL.
All right, cool. I would say let's leave it at that for now. I still got all the other questions queued, and we will get back to them after the next modules.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I believe you see my presentation now. So just a quick overview of Pester. Pester is a unit testing framework for PowerShell created by Jakub Jareś, and it also has its project website, which is pester.dev. It's supported on PowerShell 3 or later. With Windows 10 and Windows Server 2016 is pre-installed with the version 3.4.10, and currently there is a version 5. So on their website, they say if you want to update your Pester and you have 3.4.10, you have to uninstall it first. Well, you cannot upgrade straight away because the way it's pre-installed on the Windows 10, but it's on the documentation. And the main thing on Pester is the assertion should, which is the core of the module of the checks. So I'm going to share my screen again, and you should see the Pester now, PowerShell.
Yes.
Again, you can install it with the same way as dbtools, just use the Pester name, and that's the assertion should. So we have a describe block, and then we can have before all or after each blocks. So it will do something in between the checks. So it's either before all this it's, or after it's, or after each it, however that sounds. So I'm going to create a function here, just a dummy function to check the details of the event. And I'm going to check if that event is virtual or if that event is in person. And I'm going to use the should not be null or empty, just to make sure I've returned something. The function returned something. The output of the function is here. If the name is a GroupBy, and if the addition matches virtual, and the other check would be this almost the same, just this will be in person. So when I run this, I should get a nice result. And I think I didn't load Pester before that demo because my laptop rebooted, so it will take a while. Oh no, actually, it's very quick. So the first thing is the first test passed because event is virtual. So whoa, I'm on a good event. And the event is in person. No, GroupBy is not in person. No, and it passed and it failed. But I can also save this as a script and invoke that using invoke Pester, and I have even more details. details about how long the test run and how many tests passed and how many tests failed. And all the should operators are, you can get them with using command get should operator, and you have a list of should operators that are supported in Pester now. And I invite you to read the documentation or start with the quick start, which is a great thing to learn about Pester. So that's a quick overview of Pester, and quickly skip to the presentation. And now we can go to the dbachecks, and dbachecks is a module created based on Pester. That's created by our very Rob Sewell, the bearded DBA, who maintains the project. And the project website is dbachecks.io. Also, the repo is in the same account as dbatools, SQL Collaborative. It has functions with the prefix dbc, comparing to dbatools dba. But the functions are not that important in dbachecks. There is much less functions than in dbatools. But what's the main part of dbachecks are the checks. Currently, when I checked last time, it was over 130 checks, which is amazing number for something you can use to check your estate. So now I'm going to switch to my PowerShell, and you should see my PowerShell window. Let me know if you can see that.
Yes.
Perfect. So again, you can install dbachecks the same way as other two modules and see the commands. Just few commands. It's less like they can fit in the screen, which is fine. But we have dbachecks, which is 136, and even more config for each check. So when I run this, just to show you how many checks, how many configs we have and what they are. So we have, I think I can do this and this. We have all these checks, and each check has its unique tag, as well as tag with a group, like agent for agent-related checks. And sometimes it's a priority as well for like medium, high, different kind of tags as well for each check. Every check has its config counterpart in the config set. So it's also the description here, but yeah. The config is important. So when we switch to this window, we can see that for every config, we have some default values. Well, they all have default values. Sometimes it's just empty or null, but it's a value here. And for instance, for the Ola scripts, we have the default name here for Ola jobs. So there is a big flexibility to configure dbachecks. So it doesn't force you to use a specific name for Ola scripts. You can set your name if you use different name, which is excellent. And I want to close this now. Zoom is covering my view. So let's see how we can see what are the checks, like dbc check with the tag high, and we can get all the checks that have the priority high, or everything for the agent, or the specific check for the recovery model. It's a unique tag, so nothing else has this tag. And for the config, the same. We can either provide a list of configs we want to check, we could change, or we can provide the wildcard for the configs. So we can see all the Ola job names configs. We can also, as for the SQL config, we can export the config from dbachecks. So using export -dbc config, and it will export to the default location. But if you provide the location, the path, it will save it to the file as well. And I'm using the invoke item here, but I believe that's not the behavior as of now, as that was in my latest PR to the module, to be able to save it, to export this as an object, because currently I think it export just gives you the name of the path. So you have to intercept that path or go to that path. But then my PR is using this way, so you can export this to the file and open this file, which has all the stuff here. It's like a backup of the dbc of the dbhx config, but just remember it overwrites the file. So when you do something, when you change something and you run this, it will not ask you. It will just overwrite. So just be careful, or just make the dynamic name of the file so it has a timestamp or something. So it's always a good idea to have this for anything, just to have a timestamp, so you don't have to worry about this if you run this multiple times. We can set the configs almost the same way as for the server, like set dba config, provide the config name and the value, and it will confirm that it's true, that I want to auto close my databases, because I really want to auto close them, save the resources. So yeah, that's my dream. Don't do this in prod, or like anywhere. And as an example, I'm going to run the check, which is Invoke Dbc check, and I provide a list of my checks. So in my case, it will be auto close, auto shrink, and max memory on my instance. And when I run this on my instance, I get the output of all the failed, all the passed checks, and the summary. So it ran over 10 seconds. It had 7 checks passed, 6 failed. And I can see that all my databases are auto shrink is set to false, which is okay because I want that. And all my databases are auto close set to false, which I don't want to. You probably want to fix that. No, you don't. The output can have different forms, like a summary. That was the default, which gives you all the details. But if you run this summary, it will just give you the summary that something failed, something passed. That's it. And if you just need to know if it's like for the reporting or maintenance check, or you just don't want to pass this information further, you don't necessarily need to know what failed. Just if anything failed, just run this and it will give you the short numbers. And you can also use the show fails, which shows you what failed and the summary, but the command, the parameter failed, which will just show you the failed checks, and that's it. You won't see another noise like the summary or what passed or what, like you don't see this bit because it passed. So depends what you need, basically. Same for past, you will see only what's passed. But there are options, so it's not restricted to the one output, and you don't have to again parse it or play with it. It's just there. Again, with the, like when we did the backup, the export, we can also import dbc config. So let's say there are 2 different people working on the same profile machine or whatever, and they need to do some maintenance checks, and we know that there are specific databases that need to be read-only, or some jobs that need to be offline, or whatever, something that is not normal but in our environment is normal, and we have this in our config like an exceptions or something, or we want to skip some checks. So we can share that script on our local repo, and that person will import that file. That's importing from the default location, not from the one I provided here, but you can also provide the location. And that person, the other DBA or whoever is running the checks, it can be even someone from the Service Operations Center people who are working 24 hours every day, so they can run the checks. So they don't have to know what's inside of the SQL part. They just want to run something. So you can provide them with the script. But if you want to reset all when you played with all this stuff and you just want to make sure it's all back to default, you just run the reset dbc config. And then it will be back to whatever was there. There is also a command, convert dbc result. It will allow you to convert that result to different kind of outputs. Like you can, so that's a long command. You run the Invoke dbc check, providing the checks instance and pass through parameter, then pipe it to the convert dbc result command with a label to mark what is it, and then provide the pipe it to the set dbc file and export it to the file, which will be in this case JSON. Or you can also export it to the table. So my reset just finished. I'm going to import dbachecks, export it to the JSON file. Oh. Did I say config? No, I'm exporting the checks. So all the checks are exported as a JSON, or we can export it to the table when we provide write dbc table instead of set dbc file. So this part till this pipe is all the same before. And that's been exported now. And I can run the query from the table, select star from dbhx from my database Mikey, the one the table I just created here. And you can see it's just a few seconds ago. So the results are in the table. So then you can build a report on that, which is perfect. And you can also create a dashboard in Power BI. But since it seems like it's a bit slower than usual, I don't want to run the Power BI today. But there is a template in Power BI that will of the dashboard, so you can see the example of what you can see, but it's just to show you that it's possible and you can work on this. You can create your own dashboard, and if you feel like you have some dashboard ninja skills, create something and create a PR to the module to have a example in the repo as well. But instead of the Power BI report dashboard, you can also create this in Excel. And my friend Jess Pomfret created a post about Dbhx and importExcel, which will lead to our next module, that I'm just going to run this command. So I'm going to run, that's the Dbhx, the test results, that I'm going to define some conditional formatting and some other parameters. I'm just going to talk about this later in the module, but just going to show you how you can create this dashboard in Excel as well from Dbhx. So it's going to run a few commands. I think I'm over time now. I just need a few more.
You're actually good.
Okay, that's good.
You got 75 minutes, so you got almost 15 minutes left.
Excellent. So I'm going to see the Excel. It's opening now. Yay. It will have all the unsaved files now because, where is it? Let's see. Oh, actually, I didn't have anything open. So these are my outputs in Excel spreadsheet in the table. And here's a dashboard. It's a simple one, but it's possible. You can do whatever you want in Excel because there are tools in Excel like charts, pivot tables, and anything. So you can do the dashboard if you don't have Power BI, or if you want to send this to because your manager, they love dashboards. So if you want to send them like this Excel spreadsheet, like, hey, here's my dashboard. Wow. or if you don't have Power BI desktop or Power BI service, you can use this solution. And that leads to the next, the last bit of this presentation, which is the import Excel. So I'm going to switch the presentation now. And import Excel is the PowerShell module created by Doug Fink, and it's based on the EP Plus library, which is Excel package library, and it allows you to manage Excel spreadsheet, Excel files without Microsoft Office installed on your machine. So if you have, like in my case, I have a management box where I connect to different SQL servers, but I have only Office installed on my laptop, not on the management box. So I can do some operations on that management box, like gathering in details from the servers, saving to the Excel file, and then I can open the file on my laptop, which has all these fancy, shiny things. So import Excel is based on the EP Plus version below prior 5, because that was open for everyone. I think it was MIT license, and the version 5 has different license. So if you want to use this commercially, you have to pay the license. I don't know much of the details, but that's about the EP Plus library, not the import Excel itself, because it doesn't support the new library yet. The main functions are import Excel, export Excel, open Excel package, close Excel package. That's basically, in most cases, what you're using. There are some dedicated functions for different operations, but those are the main. And now back to the presentation, which is on my screen too. So you should see the PowerShell now.
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. The import Excel didn't have a way to install it with Chocolatey, but you can install it with the from the PowerShell gallery as well as other PowerShell modules. So in my case, I'm going to use the temp location of my on my laptop and some list of the files, and make sure I don't have any files there, just to, because Excel is very smart, and when you have something there and you try to overwrite it and it fails, then you open the file and it says, I tried to restore it for you, but I failed, or something, and you just don't see anything. So I'm just making sure it's empty. So let's grab the first file of the list, file name, and let's grab the commands of the module, which was pretty quick. Let's see if we have this. Yeah. And now I'm going just to select the name from the commands, and using the export Excel, I'm going to export it to the Excel file. With the kill Excel switch, I'm going to make sure the Excel application is closed. It will close every window you have. So it will not only close the file with this name, it will close all the Excel spreadsheets you have open now. And that's done. It doesn't show where. I just saved it to the temp location. I will show the file in a second. Now using the open Excel package, I can work on the existing file. So I just created a file, Excel spreadsheet, and I'm going to open that file again using the kill Excel. So it's not necessary to use kill Excel if you don't have this file open. It might be, even for the kill Excel, it might be overkill. But just make sure you close the file you're working on, because you won't be able to open it again with the PowerShell. So if you want to do something on your Excel file in import Excel, just close that file, leave other files open, and then carry on. You don't have to use the kill Excel each time. It's just for me, for the demo, to make it easier. So I know it's not there. But if you have the file open, it will scream that it cannot save the changes because the file is open or anything like that. And so I opened the Excel. It's the object is it's the Excel package. So not very useful details, but it's what's behind that. And now I can use some of the dedicated commands like add worksheet to the Excel package. So it's not Excel file, it's Excel package. And I'm adding the worksheet name process. And I just want to move it to the end. So on the list of my spreadsheet, it will be at the end. And now I'm going to grab my processes on my laptop, first 50 processes. And this list I'm going to pipe into importExcel to my importExcel package and to the worksheet I've just created. To the table, I will name the table, the range, the export will be named table. It will be auto size, freeze top row, freeze first column, just to show you it's possible. And to make it even more pretty, I'm going to open it again and add pivot table based on the process worksheet, which will have in rows, it will have name of the process, and pivot columns will have the priority class. And I will just do some calculation on CPU and company, just to see what we can do. And the switch here, activate, will make sure that when I open the file, it will open on this tab. So it won't open on the first tab, it will open on this worksheet I just created. So let's do this. And to save the changes, just use the close Excel package with the Excel package variable. And if I do this, it will just close and you won't see anything. But if I add this switch show, it will open Excel file with all the changes. So it will take a while. And I'm on the third tab. It's a new spreadsheet. I'm on the third tab because I told the PowerShell to go to to activate the last one. I also added the process one. I moved it to the end, but it was after the sheet one. So that was in the end, but now it's in the middle because I've created one more. So just so you know. And the first sheet, it has the raw list of commands from the importExcel module. The second tab, it has processes, all my processes on my, 50 processes on my laptop in a table, which is, you can see in name manager, that is the name of my table, new name table for Mikey, and that's here. And the pivot table that's been created based on this. So I have a priority class here, name here, and sum of CPU, count of company. So that was easy to create just a simple spreadsheet with some tables. And now I'm going to show you another example with the conditional formatting. So I'm going to make sure the second file from my list is, it doesn't exist. I'm going to grab some events from my laptop. Again, 50 of them, just to have some data. And now I'm going to define the new conditional formatting. So with using the new conditional text, I defined the formatting for the column A, B, C. In the first place, I just want to take care of the values above average in column A and set the background to red. In the second column, I will just highlight duplicate values in orange, or as my son says, orange. he says that for every color now. And the third column has a text condition. So whatever contains information, it will be highlighted in blue. So I'm going to add this, and now I'm going to pipe events into the Excel. So my events are here. I'm going to pipe the events into export Excel command with the new worksheet name, table name, the path. Here's the conditional formatting I've just defined. Auto-size, activate, kill Excel, and show. Show can be used in export Excel as well, as for the close Excel package. I have the Excel open here, so when I'm using the kill Excel, it will kill it. Even though the name of the file I just created is different. So just bear this in mind. And that will open a new file. Yeah, it wants to do something. I don't want to recover that. You're very, very helpful, Excel. And this one was to highlight the values above average. So if I type a very big number, which I'm not typing now because of what? That will highlight just this one because that's above average. So the conditional formatting works. And this is for duplicates. So if I type now 9, the 9 doesn't exist in this set. So if I type 9 again, it will highlight it as a duplicate. And same for the information. If I type information here, it will highlight it in blue. And you can see the definition in conditional formatting on the Home tab. It's clean. It's very clean. So above average duplicate values, very, very clean. And I also have this in my table, events conditional. So all the details are here in the Excel. And that's very useful because we can use, I'm saying very useful so many times during this presentation. I need to count that. But it's really useful to have all these commands in different modules and PowerShell modules, just instead of clicking with your mouse.
And by the way, now you are over.
Oh, okay. So I'm just finishing up really quickly. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. So we have one more conditional formatting. So I'm just going to skip this as we are running over and just show you the function here. So we can define some values from the mathematical functions. And then if we export that to the Excel as a data, as a table, then we can define a chart with some parameters. Like you can define in this form as well, instead of this here above, like this. So I'm going to define the chart and export, and it will show you the chart of the I've just created. And that's just as example. So that's my data, that's my chart. Perfect. And to match this module with the SQL, you can, Jess already did this, but I can run some query with dbatools, like Invoke Dba Query, save it to the variable, and then pipe this variable into the Excel export command, which of course it failed because something happened.
Because Excel.
No, because I didn't select the proper name. I have to pick the name from the list here, and yeah, that will export my backup set details to the Excel. So this way we can marry two words, SQL Server and PowerShell, even Excel. So, well, thank you very much for having me at the GroupBy conference. That was real pleasure. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Rob, for helping me today. Sorry for overrunning. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.